Okay, let's just jump right in. We are about to do a deep dive on a company that is, I mean, it's almost hard to comprehend. We're talking about Apple, a company currently valued at around $3 trillion. dollars.
It's an insane number. And what's so fascinating when you really get into the sources on this is that it was never supposed to happen.
Not at all.
This wasn't some, straight line to success. The entire story is just one near-death experience after another. We're talking catastrophic failures, corporate wars, and at one point, literally being weeks away from bankruptcy.
Exactly. So the story we think we know. It's missing all the good stuff, all the drama. Our mission today is to synthesize that journey. We're going to track the two forces that really drove it all. The engineering genius of Steve Wozniak, and of course, the marketing vision of Steve Jobs.
And we're going to see where it all started, where it almost completely flatlined, and what they did to pull it back from the brink time and time again.
To do that, we have to go way back. We have to start in, what, the late 60s?
Yeah, you have to go back to about 1969 to really get the feel, the mood of the time. That made personal computing even possible.
So 1969, you've got the baby boomers, anti-war protests, and in the background, microchips are becoming a real thing. But this whole story, it really starts with one person's obsession.
It does. It starts with Steve Wozniak. And he wasn't just, interested in computers. He was obsessed with how they worked. I mean, the sources say he would read these incredibly dense manuals on circuitry just for fun.
Wow.
His whole dream, which was just, unbelievably ambitious back then, was to own his own computer.
And that was the whole problem, right? Before the mid-70s, computers were these giant mainframes. They belonged to universities or the government. They were not personal.
Not at all. But then, in 1974, the first personal computer kit came out. And it was basically just a box with some flashing lights you could program.
That was it.
That was it. But the sources all say this moment just blew Wozniak's mind. All of a sudden, his dream seemed, tangible.
And that's what sparked these computer clubs to start popping up.
Exactly. And the most important one for our story is the Homebrew Computer Club in San Francisco. This is where Wozniak would bring his inventions, his little projects, every week.
And this is where he meets his partner.
This is where Steve Jobs enters the picture. He's at the same club, he sees what Wozniak is building, and he comes up with that legendary pitch. Hey, maybe we should sell these things.
It wasn't an instant success, though. Their first idea was kind of weird.
Yeah, their first product wasn't a computer at all. It was this little device to make long-distance phone calls for free. It didn't take off.
So back to the garage.
Back to the garage.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to the Apple I in 1975.
Yeah.
But you have to really picture what this was. It was not a computer like we think of one. It was just a circuit board.
Just the board.
Just a fully assembled circuit board. You had to go out and buy your own screen, your own mouse, your own keyboard. It was a product for hobbyists, not for, the general public.
But it was proof of concept.
That's the key. They only made about 200 of them, but they sold 50, and that brought in over $30,000. And for Jobs, that was everything. He saw that people loved the idea of a computer. They just didn't know how to build one.
And right there, that's the whole dynamic of the company, isn't it? Wozniak builds the impossible thing.
And Jobs figures out how to package it and sell it to the rest of us.
So that thinking is what leads directly to the Apple II. Jobs wants the full package.
And this is where Wozniak pulls off his first real miracle. Because getting all those parts into one box for a price people could afford was considered way too complicated.
So how did he do it?
Efficiency. He was just a genius at making things simple. Instead of using, say, a dozen different chips that each did one thing, he figured out how to make a few chips do everything, how to force them to multitask.
So instead of needing a whole team of workers, he just trained one worker to do 5 different jobs.
That is a perfect analogy. And that made the whole machine smaller and way, way cheaper to build. But the real killer feature, it could do color graphics on a built-in screen. That was unheard of.
Still, I'm guessing the first prototype was probably just a mess of wires.
Oh, yeah. A hunk of chips and wires, as the sources say. Totally intimidating. And that's where Jobs, the marketer, steps in. He knew it had to feel friendly, approachable.
He was one of the first people to really get that technology needed a personal connection.
Totally. He insisted on putting all that tech inside this sleek, simple beige plastic case that just didn't look scary.
And it worked. The Apple II, released in 1977, was an absolute explosion. They sold 6 million units by the time they stopped making them. The company was suddenly worth $2 billion.
Which all leads up to this massive financial moment. The IPO in December 1980, Apple goes public. Sells 4.6 million shares at $22 a share.
And the most incredible detail from that day,
300 millionaires were created. Just like that.
Yeah.
In one day. Among the employees and shareholders, it really felt like they had reached the absolute peak.
But right after that massive celebration, things started to go wrong, almost immediately.
Yeah, the success kind of bred complacency. First, you get the Apple III, which was buggy, unreliable, and then came the Lisa.
Now, the Lisa is a really important piece of the story because it was the very first computer to have a graphical user interface, a
Yeah.
GUI, with icons and folders like we use today.
It was a technical marvel, a huge breakthrough.
So if it was such a breakthrough, why did it fail? Why is the Macintosh the one we all remember?
Two big reasons. One, it was just way too expensive. And two, and this is the really crucial part, there wasn't enough good software for it. So you had this amazing machine that couldn't really do much. It was dead on arrival.
And this just made the fighting inside the company even worse.
Oh, yeah. Jobs had actually been kicked off the Lisa team. So he sees it failing, and with just pure hubris, he basically says, I'm just going to make the same thing, but better and cheaper.
And that becomes the Macintosh.
That becomes the Macintosh. It's cheaper, has a GUI, and the launch is insane. They have that famous 1984 Super Bowl ad. The hype was just off the charts.
But the reality didn't match the hype.
Not even close. The reviews came in and basically said the Macintosh still kind of sucked. It was slow. It was still expensive for most people. And this leads to this huge corporate showdown between Jobs and the new CEO, John Sculley.
The guy he hired from Pepsi with that legendary line.
The line that just shows you everything about Jobs' personality. He asks Sculley, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life or come with me and change the world?
The arrogance.
It's immense. But that kind of conflict, it's not sustainable. The board eventually sides with Sculley. Jobs is forced out of the Macintosh division, and he leaves. He quits the company he started. Wozniak leaves not long after, too.
It's important to say, though, he didn't just disappear.
No, he was busy. He starts a new computer company called NXT, and he gets involved with a little 3D animation group that would eventually become Pixar and give us Toy Story.
Meanwhile, the Apple he left behind is just stumbling. They're making new computers, but the spark is gone. The products are boring.
They're trying everything. They're trying to get into CDs, game systems, but the big threat is looming, and it's Bill Gates and Microsoft.
Right. Microsoft computers were cheaper, and for most people, they were just as good. Apple stuff just started to seem expensive and kind of pointless.
And this is the absolute bottom. The sources really stress this. Under the CEO at the time, Gil Amelio, the company, was just weeks, literally weeks away from having to declare bankruptcy. No cash, no plan. It was over.
And Emilio makes this one last desperate Hail Mary move.
We got to get him back.
Yeah.
In 1996, Apple buys Jobs' company, NXT, for $400 million. Now, on paper, it was to get their operating system, but really,
They're buying Steve Jobs.
they were buying Steve Jobs back. Emilio resigns almost right away. Jobs becomes CEO in 1997, and what he does next is just brutal and absolutely necessary.
A total purge.
Complete purge. He throws out 70% of the company's projects, fires 3,000 people, he buys up the companies making Apple clones and shuts them down. The message was crystal clear. The messy, unfocused Apple was dead.
And that focus paid off almost instantly. A year later, 1998, he's on stage introducing the iMac.
Yeah, all in one.
Okay.
And it was a monster hit. It sold 800,000 units in just the first 5 months. It proved the magic was back.
Oh.
And it really pushed the industry forward, with USB ports and being built for the internet right out of the box.
But Jobs knew the computer couldn't be the only thing. He started building an ecosystem.
Right. Powerful software for video editing, music, which became iTunes. And to sell that whole integrated experience, he did something radical. He opened his own stores.
The Apple stores, which wasn't just about selling boxes, it was about selling the lifestyle.
Exactly. But the next big leap was realizing that all this great stuff needed to be mobile. People wanted their music on the go. Which leads us to 2001 and the iPod.
A breakthrough digital device that's not a Mac.
And it was a phenomenon. 100 million units sold in 6 years. Apple's value shot up to $72 billion. They had survived. But, $3 trillion was still a long way off.
The next step was realizing that mobility could be so much more than just music. Jobs saw what competitors like BlackBerry were doing, trying to shrink a keyboard onto a phone, and he knew there was a better way.
He knew it had to be simpler and more powerful.
So in 2007, he gets on stage and he pitches the iPhone. And he pitches it as three things in one.
A widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet device.
And the launch was just immediate. 270,000 units sold in 30 hours. It was their biggest launch ever. The company even changed its name from Apple Computer to just Apple Inc.
A huge signal.
But here's the move, the real genius move that unlocked that $3 trillion number. Jobs realized the phone could do infinite things, but Apple couldn't build all of them.
And it's a bit of a paradox, right?
Yeah.
Why would giving up control to outside developers creating the App Store make them more successful?
What do you think the answer is? For our listeners out there, what's your take? Let us know in the comments below.
I think it's because they controlled the platform. They controlled the hardware and the user experience, but they basically outsourced the creativity.
The App Store was the rocket fuel. Within a month, it had 60 million apps sold and was making $1 million a day. The ecosystem was locked in.
From there, the growth was just exponential. You get the iPad. Then in 2011, Steve Jobs steps down. He passes away later that year, and Tim Cook takes over with this immense pressure to keep it all going.
And he did. We saw the iPhone 4S with Siri, the first real voice assistant, the Apple Watch in 2014. By 2016, there were over 1 billion active Apple devices in the world.
But there was one last piece of the puzzle to solve to get to that 3 trillion number. Their Mac computers still relied on parts from other companies, mainly Intel processors.
Which made them dependent. It created bottlenecks.
And this brings it all full circle, back to that original Wozniak idea of total control over the guts of the machine.
So they built their own.
They built their own chip, the M1 chip. And this wasn't just about making the computers faster. This was about cutting the cord with Intel, controlling their own supply chain, and making their products more efficient and cheaper for them to build.
That move sealed it. It gave them total independence and efficiency, and that's what puts them over the top to that $3 trillion valuation.
An incredible journey.
So after conquering the computer and music and the phone, where does a $3 trillion company possibly go from here? The sources all seem to be pointing in one direction.
Yeah, they've been filing trademarks for things like Reality OS, all this virtual reality tech.
Yeah.
And it all led to the recent launch of the Apple Vision Pro.
Which is the first brand new Apple device category since the watch. It's not a phone, it's not a computer, it's a spatial computer.
And what's so cool is you can look at their history as a guide. The first Mac was clunky and slow. The first iPhone had no app store.
Right.
So if you think about how far those first versions evolved, this Vision Pro, as it is now, is probably just the very, very beginning of their next big journey.
So as we wrap this up, it's clear the history of Apple isn't about getting it right the first time. It's really a story of learning from these huge, spectacular failures.
I think the biggest takeaway is that dual focus. You always had the Wozniak level engineering, that deep internal control we saw again with the M1 chip, and you had the Jobs level design, making it sleek and simple for the rest of us.
And the thing that saved them time and again was building that ecosystem, the hardware, the software, the app store. It all works together to keep you there.
The system is the product. Absolutely. So thinking about that, the force material ends with the Vision Pro launch. And we know the iPhone didn't really explode until the App Store came along later. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. What software, platform, or feature, something that hasn't even been announced yet, do you think will be that missing piece? What's going to be the App Store moment for the Vision Pro that takes Apple to its next incredible milestone? We'd love to hear your thoughts. It's just an amazing, improbable story that's still being written.